course, this is where the Komodo National Park is, right down here. Now, the next animal I'm going to show you is probably one of the most frightening things on the planet. It is the king cobra. Now, the king cobra is the largest venomous snake on the planet. When I say largest, a fully grown male can be well over 5 meters in length, which is as long as a lorry. It can actually rear up and look me right in the eye. They can hold a third of their body weight off the ground. It can be as thick around as my wrist, and they have long fangs that point down like this and are fixed in their to the jaw, so they can't move them like a viper. But their venom is strong enough to potentially bring down an elephant and kill an adult human in as little as a minute and a half. Of course, the thing with the Komodo dragon, with the king cobra, is that it does everything it can to avoid biting someone. I mean, if you ever find a king cobra in the wild, its first instinct is to flee to get away. But if it feels like it can't get away, it will rear up, spread its ribs into a hood, and it can actually give a hiss that's really more like a roar from a snake, and that is usually enough to frighten a predator off. And the reason why the king cobra needs to be so venomous is down to its diet. Unlike other snakes, it doesn't specialise in hunting warm-blooded animals. Instead, it only feeds on other snakes, including some of the most venomous, like the saw-scaled viper, the Russell's viper, the common krait, and even other cobras. What it does is that it bites them, and it releases enormous amounts of toxic venom, even deep into the muscle. And the venom is very complex, but the main part is what's called neurotoxin. And it's a toxin that affects like the nervous system, the heart and the lungs, and can shut down the nervous system and stop the electrical signals from our brains going to the muscles to move, and it can paralyse and kill its prey in as little as a minute and a half. And of course, as I mentioned before, they very rarely bite humans. I mean, a lot of the time they just want to escape from you. But of course, in many parts of Asia, there are people that do snake charming, which is where they tame snakes, and of course that brings in a lot of tourism, and because unfortunately, because a lot of people don't share that kind of passion, whenever they see a snake like a king cobra, quite often they just take a machete to them and kill them. But that is a very stupid idea, because a lot of the time that's when someone's more than likely to get bitten. And of course, snake charming is where people who have been working with snakes like that, both constrictors and venomous ones, can actually almost hypnotise a snake. I mean, because the king cobra, if it sees any movement, then it will just fix on that, and because its fangs are on the upper jaw, pointed downwards and fixed, it can only strike going downwards. So going down on top of its head, or just to stroke its head, is actually physically impossible for the snake to bite its handler. But even so, it's not something for the faint-hearted. King cobra, to me, is one of the most frightening animals on the planet, but it is an unbelievable and incredible snake. I mean, with venom strong enough to theoretically kill an elephant, and the ultimate killer of other snakes, it is absolutely incredible. Of course, that is the range of the king cobra. It's found through much of Asia. And the next animal I'm going to show you is the largest leopard on the planet, the Sri Lankan leopard. Now, Sri Lankan leopards, as their name says, are found on the island of Sri Lanka off the south coast of India. And probably the best place to see them is Yala National Park, which is Sri Lanka's most famous national park. And of course, what makes these leopards so special is that while in most of Asia leopards are outcompeted by tigers, in Sri Lanka there are no tigers, which makes these leopards the top predators. They're bigger, bolder, more brazen, they're Sri Lanka's top predators, and they feed on the ground. Of course, leopards hunt using stealth and cunning. I mean, they won't indulge in an all-out chase like a cheetah. Instead, all they have to do is creep to within no more than 5 meters of their prey before they pounce, and they finish it off with a bite to the throat or the back of the neck. And of course, in Sri Lanka, spotted deer are the main food source for leopards, but they will also take things like peafowl and rabbits, and even incredibly, leopards have even been seen in Sri Lanka tackling fully grown water buffalo, which is absolutely mind-boggling. Of course, I've never seen a Sri Lankan leopard before, but my grandparents have seen one when they went to Sri Lanka a few years back. As I mentioned earlier, they're the largest of all leopards, and of course the best place to see them is Yala National Park. Of course, here is their range. And of course, the next animal I'm going to show you is one of the most beloved of all animals, but also the largest, one of the largest land mammals, the Asian elephant. Elephants are found in both Africa and Asia, but the Asian elephant is noticeably smaller than African elephants. I mean, they also have smaller ears, but also, and this is a fact not many people know, in Asian elephants only the males have tusks, but they have the same social structure, the same family history as their African cousins. And I mean, large herds are dominated by females and they're young, and males leave at adolescence, and mature males will only join a herd briefly to mate. Of course, one thing that is actually quite frightening, especially with bull elephants, is when they go into season, which is called must. And basically, bull elephants, when they're in must, they produce more than 10 times the amount of testosterone. They get very angry, irritable, and aggressive, and they've just got one thing on their minds, which is finding a female, and that can make them quite dangerous and very, very frightening. And of course, I've actually heard of elephants flipping jeeps while protecting either their young or if a male is in must. I mean, if elephants are being protective or in a bad temper, they are very, very scary. I mean, they can crush a car like a tin can outrun you, and also they could probably kill you with a single swipe of their trunk. But of course, in Asia, elephants have been used as a beast of burden for many years. I mean, of course, a few decades ago, they were used in circuses like the Ring Brothers, but that practice has since been banned, and elephants have been released from the circuses and taken to sanctuaries to be looked after. Because in many national parks of Asia, elephants are used for safaris. I mean, because the elephants that are used at safari parks are actually very well cared for, despite what many people think. I mean, they are the safest way to go out looking for wildlife. I mean, one of the main reasons is because wild Asian elephants naturally inhabit the parks, so wildlife like rhinos, tigers and buffalo are used to the sight of them and won't be scared away. Although they aren't always the easiest to film from though, because when my grandparents were in Chetwan National Park a few years back, they actually rode on the back of an elephant. So of course my grandpa actually found it a little bit tricky to take a photo from the back of an elephant. But elephants are the safest way to get through what is 3 meters high and aptly named elephant grass. But also, if they're looking for rhinos, they're highly unlikely to charge elephants, but it's still always a wise idea to keep at a safe distance from them. And as I mentioned about elephants, with social structure, large herds are mainly with females and adolescent males, because once the males get mature, they quite often go off on their own and live solitary, but some males can actually form loose bachelor herds where where young males join with older and more experienced males for to learn some and get a little bit more experience from the older males. But of course, unfortunately, Asian elephants are in trouble across their range, and unlike African elephants that are hunted for their ivory, that's not the problem for Asian elephants. The problem for them is habitat loss and also human wildlife conflict, because a lot of elephants' habitat is taken over for farming and agriculture, and that unfortunately is where elephants have walked on for generations, and that causes them to come into conflict with people, with crop raiding and injuries being dealt by elephants to humans, and elephants being injured by humans. But of course there are people working to try and stop these conflicts, with human reasoning and wildlife conservationists working to protect the wildlife, the habitats they live in. We could help protect these elephants from going extinct. As I mentioned before, with Asian elephants and African elephants being their own separate species, this is a comparison of the two. That's a male Asian elephant, and that is a male African elephant. Also, another physical difference between African elephants and Asian elephants is the two big lumps on their heads. Now, African elephants don't have that. Of course, African elephants, as I also mentioned, are bigger than their Asian cousins. And of course, Asian elephants are also are slightly more easier to tame than African elephants, but it's very rare that people tame elephants these days. And here is the range of the Asian elephants. As you can see, they're found in India, Sri Lanka, and Nepal, and around the Himalayas into Southeast Asia and Indonesia. Now the next animal I'm going to show you is the gharial. Now the gharial is a member of the crocodilian family, like the same family of crocodiles, alligators and caiman, but they are very, very peculiar looking animals. The thing that always gets people about the gharial is the snout. If you look at the snout, it's very, very thin, and that's because gharial specialise in feeding on fish, so they have to carve through the water quickly to get a hold of fish, and they can be a lot quicker in the water with a thin and narrow snout rather than the fat, broader snouts of an alligator or a crocodile or a caiman. Of course, a fully grown male gharial can get to be 6 meters.